All right, so let's have a little look at four very, very important commands. Commands that will be foundational for a lot of the work that you're doing, not only now as a beginner or as you're learning AutoCAD, but later on as you become more and more proficient. These are commands that you're going to be using for most of the drawings or construction and editing and modifying. So they're very important commands. The commands that we're going to look at are in the modify panel. So we're going to move on from the line and the circle command, which we've already talked about, and move on to the modify panel. We're going to look at the offset command, which is this icon right here. And we're going to look at trim and extend, which is this one right here. And then we're going to look at the erase command. By the way, trim and extend. Trim is under that, so we can hit the down arrow to get that. All right, so let's start off with the offset command. Okay, offset is a form of copy in which we're going to make parallel copies of objects, and that's all there is to it. Okay, parallel copies. Let me go ahead and draw a couple lines in here. Okay, and if I go to the offset command, now I want to take my time here to go through, and I want you to do the same, to go through and make sure that you see what AutoCAD is asking you on the screen. So when I click the offset command, first thing AutoCAD asks is to specify an offset distance. So in order to make a parallel copy of, in this case, let's say this line, we need to know how far the copy is going to be off of the original. Right? What is that distance? So that's what AutoCAD is asking for. And why don't we just go ahead and type in 1. So we're going to make a copy that is going to be a unit, 1 unit away from the original. Okay. So when I type in 1 and hit enter, it automatically goes to where the blue highlight was, right? I don't have to move the cursor down to the command line or anything special like that. So we just hit 1, and then we can hit enter or spacebar. Remember, enter and spacebar are equivalent. And then notice the prompt switches to select objects to offset. Okay, so here we're going to just pick, well, let's say this line. Now, notice as I move over the line with my pick box, the line is highlighted, right, to indicate, hey, is this what you want to pick? And if it's the case that that's the one I want to pick, I'm going to pick it with the left mouse button. So I pick right there, and then you can see what AutoCAD is kind of doing here, but I also think it's important to read. So it's saying now specify point on side to offset. Okay, so AutoCAD wants to know, all right, you told me the distance that you want to offset it. You told me the object that you want to offset. Now, tell me whether you want to offset on the bottom side here or the top side here. All I'm doing is moving my mouse. I'm not clicking anything. But notice as I move my mouse, I'm indicating to AutoCAD, offset it down below or offset it up above. All right. So that's all there is to it. All right. Notice the cursor does not have to be at 1 unit, right? I can put it anywhere below or anywhere above, all right? So let me just offset and then click to get it to go. Notice AutoCAD stays in the command, so this is kind of a command that stays active until we tell it to stop, and we would do that by hitting the enter key or the space bar, all right? But as long as we're here, what AutoCAD does is it stores that one unit offset distance, and it's just asking me to go back and pick another object and offset it. Pick any objects and offset it, now 1. Okay. And then to be done with it, I hit the enter key of the space bar. All right, so there's the offset command. All right. there's some variations that we can do with the offset command. Okay, so first of all, let's go back to offset. Right, specify offset distance. Okay, I'll do 2.5 just to make it a little bit different. 2.5 and hit enter. Specify object to offset. All right. Now if I click on this again, notice that the number 2.5 is highlighted in blue. So let's say that after I've already started this, I realize that, it's not 2.5. I really want to offset at 2.7. So whatever's highlighted in blue, if I type, it's going to change what's highlighted in blue. So if I type in, let's say 1.7, 1.7, notice it went right up there, and I hit enter, and then there we go. Okay, so I can continue on. Now notice it went back to 2.5. Okay, so that 1.7 was just a fix for that specific instance. Right, so 2.5 is still stored as the offset distance. So I come over here, pick, and I can type in 2 and hit enter, and it offsets that, but then it's 2.5 again. Okay. What about offsetting circles? Sure, we can offset circles. What does a parallel circle look like? Well, let's go a distance of 1.5. It looks like concentric circles. Like so. Okay. Let's look at a couple more variations here. We go to offset. Now, notice that we have, I can't really move the cursor here, but notice right next to just to the left of the blue 1.5 is kind of a symbol. It looks like maybe an arrow pointing downward in a square. That is for options. And to get those options, I hit the down arrow, okay, on your keyboard. So when I hit the down arrow on the keyboard, I get some more options. And those options are actually also shown down on the command line, where you can see through, erase, layer down on the command line. Okay, through, erase, layer up there. So to activate any of these icons or options, I can just type in whichever letter is capital. So that would be T for through, E for erase, L for layer, right? Or I could move the cursor. Notice now I can move the cursor to select them like that. Okay. So we're not going to talk about layer right now because we haven't talked about layers. So I'm not going to talk about offset layers. Let's look at offset through. So when I pick through, it says select objects to offset. So I'm going to pick this object right there. And now notice what it's doing. So basically what this option is it's deferring the distance entry so that you can first pick the object that you want to offset, and then it's giving you a dynamic update of the object being offset, right? So at this point I could just eyeball it and pick a point right there, or I could type in a number and get that like that. Okay, so that's through. And erase, I'm actually going to hold off on erase too because we haven't. Well, let's actually, I think we could go ahead and do erase. Let's hit the down arrow and we go to erase. Erase source object after editing. Okay, so this is an option that we can institute in offset so that when we make the parallel copy, it erases the source object. So let's try that. Offset, and I'm going to type in a distance of 1.5 for my offset distance, and we'll pick this one. Now watch this object here, and we move this way and that object disappears. We pick over here. Notice that stays with it. Okay, that option stays on. Now if I hit enter or the space bar to close the command, and then hit enter or space bar to bring the command back, is that option, the erase option, still active? Well, let's see. let's type in a distance of 1, and we go like this, and sure enough, it's still on. So this is an important feature with options. Sometimes the options, when you turn them on, you actually have to turn them off again, okay? It doesn't revert back to normal. So in this case, I want to go back to the offset command, and I'm going to hit the down arrow, and I'm going to go to erase, and I'm going to type in no, or I'm going to select N, and then we go like this. And then we hit enter. Okay, so that's the offset command. All right, please practice that a lot, just so you get that muscle memory of how the whole thing works. Understand that there's basically 3 things that you have to answer from AutoCAD. You have to specify the distance, you have to specify the object that you want to offset, and then you have to specify the distance, the direction that you want to offset. All right, so now let's look at trim and extend. And this kind of sets us up nicely. Let me zoom in here. So let's say in this example right here, I want to trim out this portion of the line in between these 2 lines. In between that line and that line, I want to get rid of this part, right? I can't normally do that with the erase command because this is a whole object. So basically, I want to cut a section of an object out. And we do that with the trim command. So we go up here to the Modify panel and select Trim, all right? And AutoCAD first asks us to select objects, okay? Now, there's a little bit after that. It says Select Objects or, and then in the angle brackets, it says Select All. We'll come back to that, all right? But right now, it's asking us to select the objects that we want to trim, okay? And actually, what it's asking for is to select what are called cutting edge objects, okay? So in this example right here, where we want to remove that middle section of the line right here, this section, the cutting edges that I would use to move, to cut this part of the line out are this line right here and this line right here. Those are my cutting edges to remove this portion of the line. So in this first instance, I'm going to, or the first prompt, I'm going to select this line here and this line here. All right. Now I'm done picking my cutting edges. I need to tell AutoCAD that I'm done picking cutting edges. So I'm going to hit the Enter key, and it says Select Objects to Trim. And I'm going to pick right there. Notice that this cutting edge can also be used right there. And likewise right here. And when I'm done trimming, I can hit the Enter key of the spacebar to end the command. All right. Now, this is actually what gets new users confused, is the fact that AutoCAD is not being very clear with what it's prompting us for. Let's go back into that command and look a little bit closer at it. So we go to the Trim command, select objects. Well, how do I know it says select cutting objects? Well, other than the fact that I've been doing this for dozens of years, we can also look down on the command line. All right, now it says select objects, or now watch down here as I select. I'm going to pick this object right here. Now you can see down on the command line, and let me come down here so that you can see select cutting edges. All right. So that's what it's asking for. Actually, let me end the command here, hit escape. Let me expand this a little bit because I think it's going to be a little bit more clear. So I'll expand that a little bit. I'll go up to the Trim command. And now you can see where it says select cutting edges. Now, personally, I don't like the way AutoCAD kind of hides this or makes it 2 lines, right? The cutting edges is select cutting edges. The phrase is above the part where it says select objects. I find that misleading. When the Trim command was first introduced, it was misleading back then. I remember struggling with it and teaching this command for years and years. I know that it's a bit confusing, okay? So you kind of have to trim and extend are actually commands that you really have to pay attention and read on the command line or on the screen what it's prompting you for until you get that kind of automaticness. All right, so let's go back here, select cutting edges. I'll pick this line right here and this line here. I'm done selecting cutting edges, and you can see down on the command line, now that I've expanded it, it actually says 2 total objects, right? I'm done, so I hit the Enter key or the space bar, and now it says select objects to trim. I can trim this line right here, and I can trim this line right here. Can I trim this line? No, I can't trim that line because the cutting edges stop, right? But we could change that, right? If I go to project, so I hit the down arrow, right? Because you can see that little symbol right there. I hit the down arrow and I can go to project, right? Actually, no, project isn't what I want. Sorry. We want to go to edge. And then I do extend here. Notice the default is no extend, so I go to extend here. Select object to trim. Now watch. So what happens there is I turned on the option where it's extending the 2 cutting edges here and here so that they extended it infinitely in space, and it intersects right here. Does it intersect right here? Yeah. Does it intersect here? Sure. All right. So I can turn that off. I hit the down arrow. I go to edge and I go to no extend, and then it doesn't extend anymore. I can see that's not extending. All right. So let me hit enter to get rid of those. All right. So there are some other options under trim. Okay. But the most notable one that I want to show you, I'm not going to show you all the options under trim because, frankly, you don't use a lot of those options. A lot of the options are so specialized that they're rarely used, and in the CAD learning they go through all of them, so you can go through them there. But the real big one that I want to talk to you about, the one that is going to speed up your drawing and make things a lot easier, is what's going on in the angle brackets, right? So let me go back to the trim command. So it says select objects, or, and then it has the angle brackets select all. All right. So first of all, anything in AutoCAD shown in an angle bracket, such as select all, we can activate that option by just hitting the space bar or the enter key. Okay, so right now, it's asking me to select objects or hit the enter key or the space bar to select all. All right, so if I hit the space bar to select all, what does that mean? Well, that means that everything on the screen becomes a cutting edge, because remember, we were selecting cutting edges there. So that means that everything becomes a cutting edge. So now I can go in here and I can just take this away, maybe take this away, take that away, take this. I can just trim out everything based on, whatever. As long as there's lines cutting it, all right, I can remove it. All right. So I'm going to hit the enter key and go back. Let's go back to the trim command, so I can hit the space bar or the enter key to go back to the last command. Select cutting edges or select all. Space bar again, pick everything on the screen, and everything becomes a cutting edge. And then we hit enter. All right. So that's a super, super useful option. In fact, I use it more often than not because it saves you the time from actually having to pick your cutting edges, especially if you have multiple cutting edges in an object or in a drawing and you need to get rid of a lot of or trim a lot of things. It's easier to just, hit enter, pick everything on the screen, and then go to town with it. All right. So let me clean this up a little bit, and then we'll go to the we'll have a look at the extend command. The extend command is actually kind of the opposite of the trim command. Let me put some lines in here. Maybe I'll put a circle in here too. Nothing fancy. There we go. We'll zoom in here. All right. So the extend command is under the trim. So I can hit the down arrow right here and expand that and then go to extend. And lo and behold, it asks us pretty much the same question. But if you look down on the command line, it's asking not for cutting edges, but boundary edges. So in this case, what the extend command is going to do, or how we can use it, is, let's say I have these 3 lines right here, and I want to extend them to this line, or extend them to this line. This line then becomes my boundary edge, so I can pick that line, all right? Or I can also pick this line. So I have my 2 boundary edges right here. And when I'm done picking my boundary edges, I hit the Enter key of the spacebar. It says Select Objects to Extend. And now watch what happens. As I move over this, it's going to say, hey, is that what you want? Right? Is that it? Is that it? And when it's what you want, just click with the left mouse button. Want to extend it further? Yep, there we go. We could extend this one through here. We can do this one through here, and then extend it further. Okay? So that is extend, kind of the opposite, the flip side of trim. Trim, we select our cutting edges, then we select our objects to trim. Extend, we select our boundary edges, then we select our objects to extend. Okay? And in fact, they both have the feature where if you hit the Enter key, it selects everything on the screen, Enter or spacebar. So let's see how that is. So we go to the extend up here. It says select objects, or in the angle bracket, select all. So I'm going to hit the spacebar, and now it takes everything as a boundary edge. So now I can just offset everything however I want to. There's actually not that much for me to offset. Okay, and when I'm done, I hit the Enter key of the spacebar. Okay, so that's trim and extend. All right, let's look at the offset command. Oh, excuse me, we already looked at the offset command. Let's look at the erase command. Okay, so we've looked at offset, trim, and extend, and now we'll look at the erase command. The erase command is another fundamental command, absolutely fundamental. All right, and it's also very important that we understand how it works. So the erase command is right here. I like that it's really the only colored button in the modify panel, so your eye kind of instantly gravitates towards that, and it's easy to see. There's a lot of different ways that we can use the erase command. All right, I'm not going to show you all of the ways. There's videos on Canvas that I've directed you to that will go through all the different ways to erase. I'm just going to show you kind of like the top 3, the ones that you'll actually use 99.9% of the time. All right, so first of all, let's go to the erase command. Erase. It says to select objects. How do we select objects? By picking with the left mouse button. So I can just move over this. Notice I get the little icon, the X there. Notice the line, the object gets gray. So as I move over, I click with the left mouse button, and hey, wait a second, it didn't erase. What's going on? Well, the way erase works is, think of it as filling up your garbage can. All right. So I'm selecting, I'm picking objects that are going to go into the garbage can, and then I'm going to take the whole garbage can out and throw it away to erase everything that's in the garbage can. So once I've selected all these objects to erase, I hit the Enter key and they go away. All right, so I've erased those objects. Now we can't erase part of an object. That's the job of trim. So we can only erase an entire object, like this line or this circle right here. All right. Now, what if we have multiple objects that we want to erase? All right. How can we do that? Well, of course, we could just pick each of these objects, but a lot of times that's too tedious, especially when you have a lot of objects all over the whole drawing. So another way that we can select multiple objects is by using the implied windows. Okay, so when I pick erase, it says to select objects. I'm going to pick in space right here, right? Clearly, I'm not picking. By picking, I mean hit the left mouse button. Clearly, I'm not picking any objects. So when I'm clearly picking in space, AutoCAD switches to the implied window mode, right? And the implied window mode says that it's going to make a window, a selection window, right? Because that's what that is, a selection window. And if I drag from the right, if I drag from my point to the right, it's going to go into what we would call a regular window, a selection window. All right. Now notice that the regular window, the blue window, will only select objects that are entirely within the window. Now watch, nothing's been selected yet. Even this line over here isn't selected because the top of it is out. But watch, when I get around these, you see that? See it kind of become a little bit grayed out. And then there we go. So the blue window, the blue box, will only pick things that are entirely within the window. If it's partially within the window, it won't pick them. And then I finish the pick with my left mouse button, and then to actually take the garbage out, right? This is just filling in the garbage in your home. To actually take it to the curb, you hit the Enter key of the space bar. All right. Now, there's another implied window. So we go back to the erase command, and remember, we pick out in space and we drag it to the right, we get the blue window, selection window. If we drag it to the left, we get the green crossing window. And let me position this a little bit better. The green crossing window is different because, now watch, I don't need to get things entirely within the window. All I need to do is cross the window. See that? Just cross it. So you can be a lot faster with the crossing window. You just got to remember that you need to stretch it to the left for the crossing window. If you stretch it to the right, it's the blue selection window. Okay. And once we get that, then we pick second point and hit enter, and then we can erase the objects. Okay. So let me bring these back so that we have something to erase. There we go. All right. So just a couple more with the erase command. So we picked the objects, right? We can pick in space and use the blue window, or drag it to the left and use the crossing window. What other ways can we select objects that are useful for us? Well, actually, picking and the implied windows are 99% of the time. Sometimes, though, you want to pick everything on the screen, right? And I don't want to have to always zoom out. Maybe the drawing is huge, right? Zoom out and go like this, right? And window everything. Maybe I just want to type in something that will take the option of everything on the screen. Well, we can do that, and that is the all option. So watch, I go back to erase. It says select objects. At this point, what do I want to select? And I'm going to type in all and hit enter. And everything is selected. Okay, and then I can hit enter again and erase it. All right, so let me undo that. By the way, reminder, U, enter, is the undo command. The letter U, enter or space, is the undo command. All right, so we bring that back. So we've looked at erasing by picking objects. We've looked at erasing by picking in space and dragging to the right. That's the selection window. Picking in space and dragging to the left. That is the crossing window, implied windows. And then we've looked at typing in the word all, and that selects everything in our drawing to be erased. Now, what if, let's go back to erase. I'm going to type in all. What if I want everything erased except for one thing, except for that circle? How can I do that? All right. Well, like like with normal things with AutoCAD, there's a few different ways to do that. But with the erase command, we can switch to a selection set to a removing objects prompt. All right, so notice what's the prompt on the command line to select objects. It keeps wanting us to select objects, and we hit enter or the space bar to say, hey, we're done selecting objects. But what if I want to remove an object, right? Let's say I want to remove the circle, right? How can I remove it? Well, I can't pick it right there. That's not going to work, right? Watch. Type R and hit enter, and it switches to remove objects. Okay, so R is the option for switching to remove objects, and now, oh, look at that. Yep, sure enough. And we still have the implied windows, right? But now we're selecting objects to be removed from our selection set. So our selection set right now contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines and a circle. All right. I want to remove an object from that selection set of these 6 objects, and I'm going to remove the circle. I hit enter. Or excuse me, I pick with the left mouse button. Now I've removed that and I'm ready to erase, so I hit the enter key of the space bar. And then there we go. Okay, let me bring that back again. Let's go back. Last little thing. So let's type all again. Let's type R to go select this. Let's take this and this out of the selection set. Oh, but wait a second. I messed up. I don't want to remove this line. I want to go back to select objects. So how do I go back from remove objects to select objects? Well, you would think R, remove, oh, select objects, S. I must hit S. Well, let's type in S and see what happens. Nope, doesn't like that. It's actually A. A to add objects to our selection set. So we type A and hit enter. And sure enough, now it says select objects. Select objects to be erased. R, enter, remove objects from the selection set. A, to go back to add objects to the selection set. R, remove objects from the selection set. And when we were done, hit the enter key of the space bar. All right, and there we go. All right. So that was the offset command, trim and extend, and erase. All right. Not everything, not all the options with those commands. There's lots of different options there, but that's going to be your foundation for getting started. And what happens is the more adept you get, the more skilled and comfortable you get with AutoCAD, then we can start to look at some of these options. But right now, frankly, we don't need to go through all the different options for every command, because what that's going to do is just slow you down. Most of the time, we don't need all those options, and I feel like it's better to be comfortable with drawing and to get our proficiency up with drawing, and then we can add some of these finer, lesser known, kind of options for these commands. All right, so that's it. Please, this is actually going to be a command that is, or a sequence of commands that you're going to start using with drawing 1.2. Okay, so and these will build on from that. All right, so look for the next video. Thanks.